everybody, Allison here, and in this video, I want to talk about a fun signal to consider around earnings. For those of you who are familiar with the divergent bar, then you might already be aware of this setup. But for those of you who aren't, basically the divergent bar indicator is one of my indicators I have here at Simpler Trading, and it gives a good probability of when you might see a higher high or lower low within the next 3 bars. For example, here is a bullish divergent bar that followed through with a higher high. This signal printed a bearish divergent bar that followed through with a lower low. Here's a bullish one, and it took 3 days, but it ultimately followed through with a higher high. And 3 bars, so on a daily chart, 3 days, is usually how long I give this signal to work out. I find 3 is the sweet spot to whether there's a good chance of it following through versus when that's less likely. But in particular, the signal I'm talking about here is when you get a bullish divergent bar that prints into an earnings announcement that is still valid. For example, AMD had this one back here from the 27th, as well as this one the day of earnings on the 31st that printed before the announcement. Both of these were bullish divergent bars, and both of them were valid. Off of earnings, you can see we gapped up, followed through with the higher high, and got a nice move to the upside. On Tesla, we saw a similar situation where we printed a bullish divergent bar the day of going into the announcement, and then the next day we followed through with a very strong higher high that actually kept going to the upside, right? So another great win there. So the reason why I'm pointing this out is because for those of you who like to take lotto trades around earnings, this might be a setup to watch out for as we go through the remainder earnings announcements that are left for this season, or certainly any future earnings season. And it might be a good one to consider taking, especially I have found the bullish divergent bar setting up prior to the announcement. The reason why is a lot of these symbols have been beaten up the last year, right? We've seen these move lowers. And so they could certainly use a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of a retracement to the upside, whether they continue bullish from there, or whether it's just a move up into resistance before it reverses. And so anything that's printed a bullish divergent bar recently before the news, right, has that better probability of maybe following through with that higher high. Doesn't mean it always works out that way, but it has been a good clue for this season. Another example is Meta. Meta going into the close today, I talked about this in a few of the rooms, but Meta also made a bullish divergent bar. Now, I still don't know how it will open tomorrow morning, but right now and after hours, Meta is up 27 points. Right? So if this maintains going into tomorrow's open, then we're going to see a very strong gap move to the upside and a follow through on this bullish divergent bar. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. Apple technically formed one today, but their earnings will not be posted until tomorrow afternoon. So this might already get a follow through prior to the announcement. But it's certainly been an interesting setup to watch. And so I wanted to make sure that y'all are clued into it because obviously we're not done with earnings yet. There are other ones like Walmart that still have earnings later in the month. So just something to be aware of, that if you get a divergent bar that still is valid going into the announcement, it might make for a fun directional lotto trade, whether you do a long call. For example, in the Profit Recycling Mastery, we decided on Meta to do a long call at 170. So if we open up at 180, this is going to be a very nice profit for us. You could also be a little bit more conservative, right? Doing something more along the lines of a vertical spread to keep your risk low, but still have that profit potential. It also allows your strikes to be a bit closer to at the money. So that way, if the move follows through, but maybe not as strongly, there's still that possibility of getting in the money for a profit. But once again, certainly treat it like a lotto trade. Anything can reverse that decision. For example, here on Walmart on the last earnings, it technically had a bearish divergent bar that printed into the announcement, but earnings did really well. And so that bearish divergent bar never followed through. We bounced up. So this is a good example of being mindful of your risk, keeping it controlled, only risk what you're willing to lose. But if you do happen to see a setup that is like this, especially like I mentioned with a bullish divergent bar that is valid, when something has been beaten up as much as it has the last year, that could be a good contender for a higher high and follow through. Not saying everything's bounced up this season, but a great example is Peloton in the sense that earnings didn't seem too good, right? Their estimate versus their actual was actually way off. But notice the market still reacted positively to this. Now, this one didn't have a bullish divergent bar prior to the news, but that's why I mentioned keep a lookout for that signal. And if it does, might be a good contender to put a little bit of capital in to play to the upside. Google's also another one that's coming up soon. So it might be another one to watch to see if that indicator sets up. And if so, might be a good lotto trade to consider. Thank you all so much for joining me on this video. I hope you'll have a great rest of your trading day. As always, may the trade be with you, my fellow Jedis, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye.
Hey, Allison Ostrander here, Director of Risk Tolerance at Simpler Trading. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and comment down below to help us out. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you can get notified when we release our next video. And if you want to watch us trade in real time using our own money, go to simplertrading.com to learn how to sign up. As always, may the trade be with you, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.